What's up, YouTubers? I'm the Rugged Man from Rugged Man Reviews and Tips. Today, we're talking toilets. We're gonna get past all this crap and unclog some of your brain pipes. We're gonna have you figure out a thing or two about this porcelain throne and have you sit and flush. Yeah, that's probably the appropriate amount of puns. Alright folks, starting off, let's learn the actual parts of the complete toilet. Back here, you have a water line shutoff valve, as well as a water supply line. That water supply line goes into a piece in the tank. We'll talk about internals in a minute. This is the tank lid. This is the toilet seat. This part here is called the bowl. And down here underneath the actual pedestal, this is the pedestal of the toilet, there's a flange in the ground that connects it to the plumbing. We'll talk about some of the stuff inside of this. Alright, if you take this toilet tank lid off, inside of here, this is what you got going on. We're going to start with this. This is your flush handle. Your flush handle connects in here to a little chain down here. That chain connects to a piece down at the bottom called the flapper. And here's one like this. The flapper and chain are assembled pieces that come together. Now the piece that flapper's sitting on, that includes this tube that comes up, that's called the flush valve. They are replaceable. This over here is where your water supply line comes into, and it comes in, and this is called the fill valve. When the water level goes down, this little piece here, which is called a ballcock, that's not my terminology, so don't sue me. This drops down and it supplies more water. When it fills up properly, it shuts this little valve right here by raising the ballcock and shuts the water supply off. We're going to show you how to change one of these and one of those. Now, in the bottom of your tank, you see these two little rusted pieces way down in the bottom? They actually come down underneath here. Those are your tank to bowl bolts. There's actually a little rubber gasket in between that too called a tank to bowl gasket. Sometimes you do need to replace these. We're not going to get into that today. At the bottom of your pedestal here, you'll see these little white caps. Underneath those white caps are the bolts that actually tie your pedestal and your toilet to the flange. In between your toilet and the flange, there's a wax ring. That's what stops it from leaking right around the edges here. So if you ever have water at the base of your toilet and it's not coming from your toilet tank up here, then it's probably coming from your wax ring. We're going to start with changing the flapper. That little piece with the chain down inside. I already have the water shut off, so we're going to flush all this water out of this bowl. You don't have to shut the water off to do this, but I just don't like water running, so we'll do it this way. So if your replacement flapper has this little O-ring on here, they're a little pain to get on most of the time, and depending on the style of toilet, you might not need it. So you can probably see right here where it says cut, you can cut each side off and just leave these two bunny ears and get rid of this whole circle piece. We're going to do that now. So once you're done cutting that off, it should look like this. And there's the piece that you actually cut off. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to detach the chain from the flush handle. We're going to just twist this little piece off and free it from that little hole that it sits in. Just like that. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to reach your hand down in here and you're going to lift these little bunny ears off the side, like so. On each side. I know it's a little tight of a fit here, sorry folks. And there you go. Now, these little pieces will fit right back over how you took the other one off. Just don't drop the chain in the bottom, it's hard to fish out. I'm going to put each one of those flaps over these little bunny ears. And then I'm going to hold on to my chain. Now with the chain, you want it to be not too loose and not too tight. So some people will move this little link right here down a couple chains. All I do is I just twist the chain and the chain will actually start to bind up on itself a little bit and shorten it up for you so you don't have to mess with that. Then all you have to do is connect this chain to the eyelet on the end of the handle. Now we're going to turn the toilet back on as far as the water supply, and we're going to let it fill back up really quick, and then we'll test the flush. Once your toilet tank is filled back up, there should be no movement on this water down here. You shouldn't see any trickling, any bubbling, whatever. That would mean that it is either leaking past the flapper or over the overflow. Now, you can see there's a little black line on this tube that says water line. It shouldn't go over the top of this tube constantly. That means your fill valve either needs to be adjusted so the water line stops sooner, right? Or it might just need to be replaced. All right, now that you know about changing the flapper in a toilet, we're going to show you how to change the fill valve. And I'll show you why this one needs to be changed. Something you might be able to check yourself. As you can tell, this one has an old Ballcock style fill valve. We are going to be replacing it with a adjustable, new and improved style anti-siphon style. So we will be changing this out with this one, and I'll show you a little reason why. So, if you can see that, the water line is almost over the top of that little tiny overflow like I told you about. Now, I can sometimes bend this rod down so it'll actually stop overfilling, but when I flush this, I want you to watch how the water just sprays out of this thing. Yeah, it should not be spraying all over the inside of the toilet like that. So we're going to swap that out. Okay, so you're going to need a shop vac of some sort. You're going to need some channel locks and your replacement fill valve. That's all you're going to need for this one. We're going to start by shutting this water valve off. Then to get all the water out of here, just flush the toilet. And just hold it open for a second. Let a little extra drain down in there. All right. Now under here, your supply line comes up and you have this piece right here. You should be able to, by hand, loosen this up. Now you're gonna probably drip a little bit of water on the floor. Part of the reason you need the shop vac. Unplug it like that. And it'll pee out a little bit. Now, the water down in the bottom of this, that little bit that's standing in there, we're gonna shop vac that out because when we pull this whole fill valve out, it is gonna leak onto the floor quite a bit more. So I'm gonna clean this up with the shop vac real quick. Okay, no more water down there, and I cleaned the water up on the floor. So, underneath here, you'll see this has a nice little white lock nut on here. We're gonna use our channel locks to take this off. Okay, so once you get that loose with the channel locks, should only be like maybe a half of a turn. It'll be literally only hand tight. Take that off of there. And then up here, you're gonna disconnect your hose and just pull up. Now this will be usually a bit nasty, so just putting that away for right now. Okay, so this style here is quite a bit different. So what we're gonna do is if you lift up on this collar right here, see if I can get it with one hand. You basically pull it towards the top. It will separate the top piece from the bottom piece right here. So you should be able to, okay, couldn't do it with one hand. So this piece should slide right off of this piece when you lift this locking collar out of the way. You're gonna put this piece in to the same hole that you had the old one in there. So let me loosen this nut up and I'll show you how it goes in. Okay, with the locking nut on the side, we're gonna take this little piece and put it down in here into the hole, like that. Now, we're gonna go back down here and we're gonna take that lock nut and get it started on here. Now, a lot of the times there is a rubber washer on the bottom of this piece, So you can just kind of push down on it and then tighten the nut up on the bottom. And sometimes you'll actually get it to tighten up pretty good, but I always give it like maybe a quarter of a turn with the channel locks. Okay, so we got that lock nut back in place. We're gonna take this other piece, and you'll see it has a little hose fitting right here. We're gonna wanna mount this on here so that hose fitting right there actually points towards where the hose is gonna go. Let me back you guys up a little bit. So we'll fit this on there like that, and we'll slide it down. Now this is the part that will raise to shut off the water. So we want to try to line this up to where when it reaches its top potential, we're close to where that water line mark is. Then you're going to slide that collar back down on the bottom over top of it till it locks in place. Make sure it's all the way down on this piece onto the other piece, because otherwise this might blow off with water pressure. Okay, so that collar down on the bottom, it should be locked in tight. So this one doesn't pull up when I pull on it. Now, we're going to put the hose onto this end, and I'll show you 2 ways you can fix it to the other end. Okay, this is the actual fill valve hose. Now, they come with this little clippy-do where you can just kind of clip it over the pipe like that. Of course, I did that wrong. You want to have the actual hose end down inside of there, but I don't like doing that. So what I do is I get a decent measurement to where I can bend this, and I'm going to cut that excess off so I can tuck it back into the retainer ring. Okay, so I cut that excess off. I'm going to tuck this back inside of the retainer ring here. Now, you should see it poke through the bottom a little bit, but you don't want an excessive amount of hose down in here, or else gravity is actually going to pull water in there all the time, and you're going to hear this toilet running. Okay, all right, so now that I checked everything was, tight, double check myself here, we're going to go back down here to the supply line. We're going to fit it underneath it here. It might be a little bit tighter than the old one. Grab that little hose nut there and just tighten this back down. Now this, you don't have to tighten up too much. If you actually over tighten it, you'll start spinning the inside of the actual fill valve. Now once you know that everything's tight in here, and I always tell everybody to double check, you can turn this water supply back on. But when I turn this water supply back on, I'm going to keep an extra hand just holding the top of this in case I didn't use that sleeve collar down on the bottom and tighten it up good enough. I don't want it blowing off the top and spraying water all over the apartment. So I'm going to do that really quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, folks, we got the water turned back on. We're going to let this build up, and of course it should raise this piece up and shut that water off. Okay, folks, everything's back together. We're going to give it one more flush just for good measure. Not half bad. Well, that's all the time we have for my potty mouth today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and learned a couple things about the toilet. It's been a bowl of fun. I am the Rugged Man, and thanks for watching Rugged Man reviews and tips. That's a lot of puns.